Thank you very much. I'd like to call the meeting to order this morning and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Brent McIntyre and I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. To my left in the boardroom is Ian Mann, and zooming in is Valerie Wareham. Our assessor today, representing the City of Winnipeg, is Clayton Deitchen, and our administrative personnel is Sally Cofield. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to that matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 to 10 through 10 on our docket today. Ms. Caulfield, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Clayton Deitchen.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. First property on the docket today is 290 Belleville Road. And are there any preliminary issues either party?
No, not from our perspective, Mr. Chair.
Nope.
Okay, Clayton, you can proceed with your presentation.
Okay, file number 223147, roll number 0800412530. The address is 290 Belleville Road. I do have a recommendation for this property. It's using the applicant's income of $1,882,382 and the applicant's expenses, but with adjusted R&M of $1,500 because the R&M used at $2,100 is too high for this type of apartment. So it brings the expenses to $975,826 and the NOI to $906,556 at a cap rate of 5.55%. Brings the value to $16,334,000, which is just a 0.6 increase from last assessment.
So the revised NOI again, because I was trying to write everything down.
906,556.
Cap rate still at 5.5.
5.55, yeah.
And it's a reduced value to
16,334.
334.
Yep.
And Jared, were you aware of the recommendation?
No, I wasn't. So I do appreciate it, but we're certainly closer. But I'd like to proceed with the presentation. If you may, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, Clayton, you can proceed with the presentation.
Okay. So it is 3 buildings, 3 stories high, built in 1972 with 150 suites and 169 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 is the income value summary. There are 87 1-bedrooms, 63 2-bedrooms, giving us 150 suites and an average monthly rent of $1125.60. Continue on to page 4 is the rent comparables. So I tried to find some in the area with similar suite mixes built around the same age. And you can see it falls near the low end of the average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence. The following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual cap rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived cap rates. And then as you can see, there's our cap rates that range from 3.6 to 5.75. Page 6 is our cap rate table that shows our modeled cap rates from the 20th percentile to the 80th percentile. Page 8 is a permit that was taken out, looks like 2010, and that was exterior alterations to the balconies, replace concrete slabs for $56,000. And page 10 and 11 is just replacing balcony repair for the other 2 buildings. Continue on to page 12 is the income and expense mailers. Page 16 and on are pictures of the suites and the interiors. You can see that they're pretty nice inside. Page 19 is just a small description of the apartment, and that is my evidence.
Thank you. Jared, any questions?
Just a few, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Mr. Dychen, so the initial assessment is all modeled, correct?
Correct.
And then basically the recommendation that you made is based on, I think you said, an adjustment to the R&M. Did you review the actual R&M that's being reported, and did you try to stabilize it in any way?
I did not stabilize it, no. I just know that 2100, and you can see all the years are quite high.
Okay, and we can agree, though, that there's 3 buildings on site, which typically leads to a higher degree of R&M?
There are 3 buildings. I'm not sure if that leads to a higher R&M or not, though.
Okay. And did you consider the actual rents in your review?
I just used your stabilized income.
Okay. And just to be very clear, you mentioned some permits, but those are indeed from 2010, and that's just to maintain those exterior balconies, correct?
Yeah, like replacing concrete slabs and stuff is pretty big undertaking, but yeah, it's from 2010.
Mr. Chair, those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Valerie, any questions?
No, mine were just answered. Thank you.
And Ian.
A couple of questions. First of all, the work that was done in 2010, does that affect the effective build year at all, or does it change from 1972?
Generally not, no, that wouldn't. It'd be more like interior work that would have been done, remodeling, renovations like that.
Okay, the information on the page 1 shows outdoor parking of 169 suites. Where does that number come from? Because I think there's a discrepancy between that and what is being reported by the applicant.
I'm not, like, that would have been put in there whenever this building would have been added into the system. I'm not too sure. I didn't have time to double check it.
Okay. And similarly, I think there's a discrepancy of 1 apartment for the number of suites. I think the applicant has 151 suites. You have 150. Doesn't make much of a difference on the income side of things, but I'm just wondering if there is an explanation for the discrepancy or if you know anything about that.
Again, yeah, I don't. I would have to look into that a little bit further.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Just to carry on that question, because I had the same thing. Is there a leasing office being used as one of the suites?
Oh, that very well could be. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, that was my only clarification. Jared, you can make your presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So once again, we are at 290 Bellevaux, and it's an interesting question about the parking. I'll have to look into that. We haven't made any adjustments for inferior parking, but typically our information comes from the INEs. We don't have the full INE here, so I won't make any comment about that, but I will make a note to check it when I'm back in the office. The property is built in 1972. As I mentioned, there are 3 buildings on site. We have 87 one-bedroom units and 64 two-bedroom units, and we have 109 parking stalls on site. Ultimately, we have used a cap rate of 5.75, but I've reviewed this property this weekend as well, and I'm going to accept the 5.55%. The properties are in good shape. They're not totally like a garden apartment where we would make an upward adjustment to our baseline cap rate. So 5.55 we are comfortable with. Now, ultimately, we're using the actual rents in place, and we are stabilizing the expenses. So that's all been provided from page 10. So our NOI comes to 814,886, and capitalized with a 5.55 cap, we come to 14,682,630, which we then round to 14,683. In terms of the R&M, we have a stabilized R&M for this property. I would suggest to you that it's not high, but it is exactly as it should be. This is what's been recorded. We have a 5-year view. See that on page 11. We've itemized each of the items that were reported by the owner from those statements from the years 16 leading up to 20, created a 5-year average. We backed out the capital expenditures as well as the waste and the snow, and we can see very clearly that the R&M per suite is $2,097. That is actually commensurate with other properties at this age that we see, so that doesn't give us any pause or concern. So ultimately, the balance of my brief has some physical details. You can see some staged marketing photos. They are maintained on the interior, and that typically the rents would reflect that. So I think I will leave it there. It does say, actually, I will say that on page 19 where it says outdoor parking stall included, I would suggest that it probably does have a 1-to-1 parking ratio. So we'll have to go and check that. But again, we're not adjusting the cap rate above our standard. We're okay with that 5.55, and that's a slight adjustment we've made here. So we do respectfully submit the value not exceed 14,683,000. And with that, I'm open to your questions.
Thank you very much. Clayton, any questions?
Just one. Where did you get the breakdown of the R&M?
That's from, so every year when the city requests the income and expenses, the owner sends in their statements. We then take their statements and we analyze them, and that's how we create our repair and maintenance figures. The same way that when we look at the workup, each line item there on page 10 of my brief comes from the actual reported income and expense statement. So we do a site-specific analysis for all properties where we have full financial details.
Okay, I guess I should have said, is the breakdown of the R&M in your brief?
Yeah, it's on page 11.
No, like where you got those figures from, though.
No, we don't have. We haven't included all the statements from 2016 onward. We have the most recent ones starting on page 20, but you would have those. So we have 17, 18, 19, and 20. Oh no, we have 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So yes, they are. We have some statements here, and you would have on file all the other information, presumably. So
Okay, I guess my question more is like I'm looking at your breakdown on page 11 and you talk about like flooring and a bunch of other line items, but in their mailers they don't have that broken down. They just have the total R&M.
Oh, okay. Well, in this case, they may come directly from the owner. Not sure, but these are certainly from the owner.
Okay, no other questions.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
None, thanks.
And Ian?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks.
I just have one sort of general question, Jared. That it looks like in your pictures and the assessor's pictures are the same.
Yeah.
That this has been renovated inside.
Oh, sure. Yeah. These are well staged, to be certain. These are staged for marketing purposes. So these are from the leasing marketing collaterals, but we're not suggesting that they're true to 1972. Yeah, no, precisely. But if you take all the furniture out, you can see that kitchen area, that is sort of the older style. And you can see that some of that flooring, it's been replaced over the years, but and we're not adjusting for condition. But yeah, we're not saying that they're not maintained. They clearly appear to be well maintained.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. So that concludes this property. The next one is, so let me get there. 270 Belleville. Any preliminary issues on this one?
Not from our side, Mr. Chair.
Nope.
Okay, Clayton, you can proceed.
Okay. It's file number 2224 or 222245. Roll number 0800412670. The address is 270 Belleville Road. Roll year 2023 assessed values at $4,331,000. Is one building, 3 stories high, built in 1978, with 35 suites and 42 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 shows 14 one-bedrooms and 21 two-bedrooms for a total of 35 units at an average monthly rent of $1,008.14. The gross effective income is $409,870. Expenses are at $195,467, bringing the NOI to $214,403 at a cap rate of 4.95%, brings the value to $4,331,000. Continuing on to page 4 is the rent comparables again. Try to find similar suite mixes in the area, and you can see once again the average monthly rent falls in line with the range that I have there. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table. Page 8 are some permits for exterior alterations to the balconies, again similar to the last one from 2013, around $56,000. Continuing on to page 9 and 10 are the income and expense mailers. The model NOI is around $214,000, and the actual for 2020 is around $238,000 once removing the mortgage payments. So it looks like we're on the low end of the NOI. Page 11 and forward are just a few interior pictures. You can see that they've definitely done the cabinets and some work in the bathroom, and that is my evidence.
Thank you. Jared, any questions?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. Mr. Dyson, again, this is all model derived, this workup, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that cap rate of 4.95, can we agree that would be on the, if we look simply to the brokers, for example, this would be on the very low end of what the brokers are suggesting, would it not?
Yeah, if you look at the brokers, if you look at the City of Winnipeg one, it's kind of close to the middle.
All right, and it is indeed built in 1978. There's been no structural work that you're aware of that would extend the physical life of the asset. Is that fair?
No, but it looks like they've done some renovations, so it might warrant an inspection and effective age.
Okay. And, well, okay. So, and then again, you have a permit here, but just so we're clear, that permit is from the year 2013, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did you consider any of the actual rents that were being applied here, or that are being achieved in this property?
What do you mean?
Well, did you look at the actual rents, or did you simply use the model and then try to support them with what we'll call comparable or proxy rents?
Yeah, like I looked at the actuals, and like I said, the NOI was coming in around 238,000.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'll leave my comments there, Mr. Chair, and I'll save the rest for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
Not at this time, thanks.
And Ian?
Just with respect to the cap rate, the same work, the exterior work appears to be the only one for which permits have been taken. Is this the only permit that
Yeah.
you're aware of?
Yeah, that was the only permit that I could find on the property.
Okay, and that doesn't affect the effective year of build?
Like that permit, probably not, but like the interior work might. Like I said, depending on an inspection to see the full suites and stuff.
Okay, you also alluded to some other renovations. Was that exterior work or interior work you were referring to?
Oh, I was just looking at the pictures. You could tell that the cabinets were definitely redone or replaced. Backsplash, like the kitchens look done. The bathrooms are definitely not 1970s as well.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions. Those are my questions.
Thank you. I have just one question, Clayton. On the last one, which was adjacent to this property, so the one at 290 Bellevue had a cap rate of 5.5, yet this one just next door has a cap rate of 4.95.
Yeah, their model cap rates, I can't really speak to why one is different without comparing them side by side, like going in depth and comparing them. It would be hard to say.
Well, it seems they were both built in the same decade, and they both had interior renovations.
Yeah, one's bigger as well, with more buildings. Yeah, like that's the that's the best answer I could give you right now. Unfortunately, sorry.
Okay, Jared, you can proceed with your presentation. Thank you, sir. Okay, so 270 Bellevue, you're quite correct. We're right down the street here. Another mid to late 70s apartment. It does certainly look like it's from the 70s on the outside. It's got that wood cladding, which actually is well, there's probably more maintenance concerns with that, but we haven't made an adjustment. So it's a 3-story structure. It's built in 78. The site size is about 40,539 square feet, and it's zoned RMFS, so multifamily small. It has 35 units with 14 one-bedroom suites and 21 two-bedroom suites. I have some photos. You can see exactly where it is. Now, we've used, once again, the actual market rents being achieved. We think that that's the best indicator of value. There's no reason for us to believe that the rents are not at the exact market that the market will bear for this property. The expense ratio is stabilized at 48.2% using actuals. Now, in terms of the cap rate, I'll go through this once very quickly. You've all heard it many, many times, but you've all been provided our cap rate study. And ultimately, our conclusion for properties of this age, 1 to 5 story properties built between 1960 to 1998. Now, that's a pretty wide swath, but that's going to encompass many of the properties that we're going to see as typical apartment buildings in the city of Winnipeg. And we are going to apply a baseline cap rate, providing good condition, providing good location of 5.5%. Mr. Chair, you quite rightly pointed out, why would the one next door have a different cap rate? We accepted the 5.5, slightly higher because there are more buildings, tantamount to more risk. But ultimately, for these properties that are sort of right down the middle of the market, we're going to suggest that 5.5 makes sense. We will occasionally, again, make adjustments for building type and construction. That's outlined here. Amenities, properties that will be more amenity rich, are satisfying the desires of the current market, so that's going to be our latest and greatest. Those will typically have lower cap rates than some of these older builds that we're talking about today. Age, condition, parking ratios, suite sizes, number of suites, and then of course location and external factors. So ultimately, our study is, I believe in this case, fully supported by the brokers. If the cap rates are somewhere in the city between 5 to 6% as a general comment, then we think 5.5% makes sense for some of these mid-70s builds. Now, so we will apply 5.5% here. On page 11, you can see the actual rents that are being achieved. Now, I should point out that in some cases we stabilize over a number of years, and in others we will, or I should say, in some cases we will stabilize the expenses, but we will also use the most current year where applicable. So items such as insurance are not typically going down, so it makes sense to use the most current year so as to not to distort them or depress them. And similarly, it makes sense to use the most current year when it comes to income, so that income is not depressed either. So in 2020, the most relevant year, you can see that this property was generating $391,849. Now that's a ways away from what the city is suggesting, $423,410. We've included a market vacancy of 3.2%. I do point out that the citywide average vacancy for apartments at the reference date is 3.8%, and we have included the fact that there's a consideration here for bad debt and collection loss, and it runs between, well, let's say 1.2 to 3.8. So in some cases where it is, whereas this is something that it is constant, we will consider it, but we also recognize that the owner is picking up some income by way of laundry, parking, and what they're calling miscellaneous. So ultimately, we get a little closer. Our effective gross income becomes $392,919. The assessor is at $409,861 based on the model, presumably. All the other inputs are outlined here. I'm not going to read through them, but you can see that at the end of the day, our expenses are actually calculating out to $189,471, which is slightly lower than what the model is suggesting. So we're not worlds apart there, but again, we are using actuals. Our stabilized ROM for this exercise is $1,358, and our NOI is about $10,000 or so lower than the model, and that's based on actuals. So once again, the actual NOI based on our stabilization exercise here today comes to $203,447. We then capitalize that with a 5.5 cap, leading us to an indicated market value of $3,699,043. We then round that to $3,699,000. I have the R&M study again. This one's a bit, it's not as fulsome as the previous, but you can see it does come to $1,358. It was a bit higher in 2020 on the actuals, but we're comfortable with that figure. Then we have some photos. You can see that exterior sort of wood cladding on the property, true to its vintage, but the interiors have had some work. They're upgraded, and that subtends the rental rates. So ultimately, we feel very comfortable with our value. We do respectfully submit that the value for this site will not exceed $3,699,000. And a thank you.
That's it?
That's it. Thanks.
Clayton, any questions?
Just one. How come you didn't use the actual vacancy for this property?
Well, we typically use, well, not typically, unless there's some major concern with vacancy, if we see some chronic vacancy, we may adjust upwards from the market. But what we don't want is to have the vacancy looking like a roller coaster over the life of the asset. So we try to use something that is commensurate with a market vacancy that is sustainable over the life of the asset. So again, I've mentioned 3.8 is the citywide vacancy. Now that changes with area, that changes with suite type and count, but as a baseline, 3.8 is the citywide vacancy. So in this case, we have accepted 3.2. It is a bit on the low side, but we are generally comfortable with that figure, provided that there's no red flags in our analysis. But in this case, and you won't see this with every property, but in this case, we do see bad debt and collection loss. So that is something that would give an owner some concern. We haven't captured that in the risk profile of the asset, and we certainly haven't double counted it but we do need to recognize that that's going on. So we've used a market vacancy, and then we've given some consideration to bad debt and collection loss in this instance.
Great, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
None, thank you.
Ian?
Just a couple of questions relating to the cap rate. I think you'd indicated elsewhere that multiple buildings can result in an increased risk, resulting in a higher cap rate. Yes. But there's only one building here. That's
Precisely, yeah. So no adjustment to this property. No.
nothing moving it up or I guess potentially down for just one building.
No, it seems like a pretty typical 1970s walk-up. So 5.5 is middle of the road. That seems to make sense. Yeah.
And your repairs and maintenance per suite, I see it stabilized over 5 years, is $1,358 per suite. And a lower stabilized ongoing maintenance by that could result in a lower cap rate.
It also, well, there's a couple ways to look at that. So it could also result in lower rents. So if you pay less to maintain you spend less on your property, typically your rents will not be on the higher end. So yeah, so I guess that would be my comment on R&M. So if you see something like $2,000 a door and the rents are slightly higher, then that makes sense. In this case, we have lower R&M, and I think the model is actually overshooting the rent, which makes sense. So
okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
And I have no questions. Thank you. The next property on the docket is just down the street, 182 Belleville Road. Any issues on this, gentlemen, either party?
not for me, thanks.
Nope.
Okay, Clayton, you can proceed.
Okay. It is file number 221050, roll number 0800417750, and the address is 182 Belleville Road. Roll year 2023, assessed values at $9,965,000, and liability is grant. It is 3 buildings, 2 to 3 stories high, built in 1977 with a small effective year built on it. It is 60 suites with 80 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 shows it has 34 2-bedrooms and 26 3-bedrooms for a total of 60 units at an average monthly rent of $1,337.89. The gross effective income is at $932,456, with the expenses at $429,209, brings the NOI to $503,247 at a cap rate of 5.05%, brings the value to $9,965,000. Page 4 again is the rent comparables. Tried to find similar year built in the area with similar suite mixes. Again, it falls near the low end of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the CMHC market rent calculations that I did. You can see it's about 8% lower than the CMHC market rents. Page 6 is just the table showing the different CMHC rents. Page 7 is the cap rate evidence supporting your model cap rates again. Page 8 is the cap rate table. Page 10 is a permit to construct a 1-story, 135 square foot addition to establish a caretaker office. Permit to include interior and exterior alterations to the existing building. And if I could read this correctly, it's about $3 million. And that was back in 2012. Page 11 is just an article that I found that there was about $7 million put into the housing complex in the area. Page 12 and forward is the income expense mailers. Page 19 to 21 are some pictures of the building. And you can see that the interior pictures aren't the greatest quality, but you can kind of see what they're like inside. And that is my evidence.
Thank you very much. Jared, any questions?
Yes. Mr. Dykshin, can we agree to begin with, this is social housing? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you'd mentioned some work that was done, but just to be clear, that was to build a caretaker office. So that would be, can we agree that that would be atypical of the type of additions we would see in the private market? Is that fair?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. So I guess my question is the construction of a caretaker office, would that have a large contributory value to a private market participant, or would that be just for would that be more for the fact that this is social housing?
I'm not too sure. Like, they did other work too on the property. Like, back in 2013 they renovated a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
For
Are you aware of the shape this property was in before that renovation?
No, I'm not.
Okay, sure. And that's fine. And we agree there was work done here, but so we're clear, the city is suggesting that the actual year build is 77 and the new effective year is 1982 based on that work done, correct?
I believe so. That's why the effective age is applied. Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. So, and we don't disagree with that. Now, the balance of this work up here, this is all model generated. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and can we agree that in addition to being social housing, this property is also what we'll call a garden style apartment?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, and would you agree with me that typically garden style apartments have they're contained in that they have their own systems, they have their own hot water tanks, etc. So they're less efficient than what we'll call a typical vertical apartment. Is that a fair comment?
Honestly, I'm not too sure.
Okay. I noticed too that the model is suggesting 92.79% as a factor of the CMHC rents, but that's fairly high for other social housing properties we've seen this cycle, is it not?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. I think. Okay. And again, this work, it does go back to 2013, so it's this would have been captured in a couple of cycles. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I believe so.
Those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Valerie, any questions?
None, thanks.
And Ian?
One with respect to the modeling aspect and the cap rate. Do you know if the model allows for types of income streams? For example, making an allowance for social housing or Manitoba housing?
Honestly, I'm not too sure.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. I have, Clayton, if you want to go to page 16, the mailer
Yep.
is showing 12 suites. Yet this building and this roll number has 60 suites.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like, we don't even look at the mailers really for these social housing type properties. I'm not too sure why it says 12.
I guess the question is that mailer for another property?
No, it says 182 Belleville Road. Unless it's just for part of the property, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
It definitely doesn't have 12 suites.
It should have sent a red flag up somewhere.
Yeah, like, it would be something I'd have to look into afterwards.
Because if this is in fact part of the data used to create the model, then there's something wrong.
I don't think we use the mailers from these social housings because, like, their income expenses are not, they're usually like way higher expenses and low rent. So I don't think we use the social housing mailers, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, no, that's fine. That was my only concern. Jared, you can make your presentation.
Thank you, sir. So again, we have a social housing complex. That's wrong. Right up in the first part of here, but okay. So it is built in 77, effective age of 82. There was some work done here. Now, just to expedite this process, we are, Mr. Deitchen is quite right. The rents that are achieved here are rent year to income. They're typically 30% of the tenant's income. So they're not considered at market. In this case, the rents are a touch higher than what we'll typically see. Typically, the model will suggest rents of 75 to 80% of the area average for CMHC, and we generally agree with that, unless there's some other issue at play. But for the sake of argument, we have accepted those gross rents. We have accepted that that expense ratio. But where we differ is, of course, on the cap rate. Now, I mentioned that we would typically apply an upward adjustment for garden style apartments for multiple buildings, and we also increased the cap rate for social housing. I've included some information at the back of this brief, but typically these properties do typify a more risky investment to a private market investor. So we do make some considerations there. Mr. Mann, you had a good question regarding how the model may treat these properties. And in our experience, they will use, again, a factor of CMHC rent. But we're always sort of in the issue of, or at the point of arguing if the expenses where they ought to be, if they are indeed high in some cases. We do make the argument that typically the expenses are what they are, and that's not directly tied necessarily to social housing, but the expenses, the rents should be adjusted. But where we don't see consideration in the model is indeed in the cap rate. You can see that here in this very instance. So where we would typically use a slightly higher cap rate, we are trying to recognize the fact that the variant age of the early 80s seems right, given the work that's gone on. It was a typical late 1970s garden style apartment, and we generally increase the cap rate. I know in the past the city model has actually adjusted upward for row houses and maybe even garden style. So, and for the very fact that I mentioned earlier, you have more systems to maintain, and they're just generally less efficient as a general comment. So in this instance, we tried to be very fair. We've applied a cap rate of 5.75. That is an adjustment up from 5.5, but we are trying to recognize the physical characteristics of the property, and we are trying to recognize the fact that social housing ought to be applied a higher cap rate based on the fact that lower quality builds, low income tenancy, and in some cases area or location would cause an investor to look at these properties as a higher risk investment. I've included some orders there. They're there for support of our position. So ultimately, we are suggesting a value of no more than $8,752,000, and that is simply based on accepting the parameters of the model, but recognizing that we have to capture some of this risk to a private market investor. So we have applied a cap rate of 5.75, 5.0 would be extremely low. So ultimately, we do respectfully suggest that the value not exceed $8,752,000, and that is my presentation.
Thank you very much. Valerie, any questions?
Yes, just a clarification on your page 4.
Yep.
The property description.
Yeah, that is copied over from the wrong. My apologies. That's a typo from the wrong property. It's appears to be talking about Furby Street, so it would be that copied over from a different property. So that is an error. My apologies.
Okay, but the rest of your information is to do with 182 Belleville.
Yeah, the photos are right, the maps are right. It's just that something happened clerically there on that page. So my apologies, but yes, you were quite right. That is erroneous info. It is indeed 3 buildings built in 77 with 2 to 3 stories. It's a typical garden style apartment that's been renovated, and it is on Belleville, not on Furby. So yeah, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ian.
Just with respect to the cap rate and the income source here, and you alluded to the 4 criteria that are considered in the increased cap rate, low cost, low quality construction. There's no evidence that's here. This is garden style, but it's not low cost or low quality
Well,
construction.
it's wood frame, so that would be on the lower end, and low income tenancy certainly. So there's, and location, not going to make a adjustment there, but certainly 2 of those 4 factors would be apparent.
Okay. And if the 2 of the 4 factors are apparent, if all 4 factors are apparent, is there a mathematical or a linear increase to the cap rate or
Yeah,
corresponding decrease if they're not all present?
Yeah, so typically we would use a half point adjustment for social housing at a minimum. Here I've only used a quarter point. So I suppose it is somewhat discretionary, but we do try and keep the standard in our office when we're looking at these properties.
Okay. Thank you. That was all.
Thank you. Clayton, did I forget about you?
Yeah.
So quickly on these.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other further questions.
And
Thanks.
the only question that I ever had was the issue with Burby Street on the docket, or on the
Apologies, there's
Okay, no problem.
briefs flying around, so.
No problem. So that concludes that property. So the next one is 166 Belleville. Any issues on this, gentlemen?
Not for us, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Clayton, you can start with your presentation.
Okay, it's file number 222209. Roll number 080041885500. The address is 166 Belleville Road. Roll year 2023, assessed values at $1,348,000. It is class code 40 and liability school tax exempt. It is 1 building, 1 story high, built in 1968, with 26 suites and 10 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 shows 22 bachelor suites and 4 1-bedrooms, giving us 26 units at an average monthly rent of $544.86. Oh, sorry. I also have a recommendation on this property. My mistake. Using our effective gross income of $164,556 and the applicant's expenses, but we use the average reserve expenditures because it was odd that they jumped from 5707 to 13049. So it brings the expenses to 107,847 and the NOI to 56,709 at a cap rate of 5.5%, brings the value to $1,031,000.
So just to go over this, so your expenses 107,847.
Yep.
And the revised NOI of 56,709.
Yep.
And no change in the cap rate?
No, 5.5.
5.5?
Yep.
Well, I think I saw
Oh, sorry.
0.
Oh, yeah, sorry, no, sorry, I am changing the cap rate. My mistake.
Cap
Yeah,
of 5.
5.5. Yep.
Okay, Jared, were you aware of?
No, this is new information for me, so I appreciate it, but I would like to move forward, but I will, I'm looking at that 56,709. That doesn't seem out of sorts with me, but I would like to just continue to discuss the cap rate for a number of very specific reasons that will become apparent. So I'm okay with that NOI, but I would like to continue on.
Okay, Clayton, you can continue with your presentation.
All right. I guess I'll just kind of go through this quickly. Page 4 is the rent comparables. Page 5 and 6 are the cap rate information. Page 8 is a permit for exterior alterations to include placing all exterior doors and windows. That was from 2018, and it looks like it's about $235,000. Page 10 to 13 are the income and expense mailers, and then page 14 is just some information about the property and the building. Page 15 and 16 are just some pictures of the exterior. Unfortunately, there's no interior photos, and that is my evidence.
Thank you. Jared, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just limit my questions to cap rate, as that's means the only issue germane to our discussion. So, Mr. Daichen, can we agree that the parking ratio would be inferior in this property with 10 stalls to 26 suites? Is that fair?
It's not 1-to-1, so yeah.
Okay. And can we agree, just, sorry, I should ask this first. This is a, what we'll call a supported seniors lodge style asset. Is that fair?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so the cap rate, or I guess the model, does it have any capacity to recognize these atypical or purpose-built assets?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. So, okay, and then quickly on page, does it show here? Oh, yeah, it's on your page 14. Did you notice the suite sizes?
Yep.
Can we agree that a 300 square foot unit is exceptionally small in this market?
I'd say it's small. Yep.
Okay, and similarly, a one bedroom of 380 square feet. That's an extremely small one bedroom, is it not?
I would say it's small. Yep.
Okay, and I guess, well, I've asked the question about the cap rate, so I think I'll leave my questions there, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
No, mine were answered. Thank you.
And Ian?
No, I don't have any questions.
And just for the record, do you want to give me the revised value?
Yeah, it's $1,031,000.
Thank you. Okay, Jared, if you can continue with or start your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So again, we are applying a cap rate of 6%. So that's an adjustment over and above our baseline cap, and it's for the following reasons. We have this property built in 1968. It is purpose built clearly for seniors housing. So it caters to a, let's say, a smaller swath or niche of population. It is wood frame. And it would be, again, purpose built. So in terms of the market's appetite right now, we do consider suite mix. This property has an inferior suite mix. It has 22 bachelor suites with only 4 one bedrooms. And as I mentioned, these are on the extremely small side. So we don't typically see suites in a property that don't exceed 380 square feet, with the vast majority at only about 300 square feet. So that's a major issue. Again, predominantly these are bachelor suites, about 85%. It is a seniors nonprofit rental, so it would not have a history of economic profit, and those suite sizes are a concern. So ultimately, if we're making some consideration with the assessor's NOI, we do continue to feel very strongly that 6% is appropriate. So using that NOI of $56,709 with a 6% cap rate, we come to $945,150. Again, that value becomes rounded to $945,000. And I think given the specific characteristics of this property, I think that's fair. So that would conclude my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Clayton, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Valerie?
None.
Ian?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. So that concludes that property. The next one on the docket is 256 St. Anne's Road. So we're going off Belleville. Any preliminary issues?
Not for us, Mr. Chair.
Nope.
Okay, let's proceed with this one. 250.
Oh, sorry.
256 St. Anne's.
Yep. Okay. File number 222189. File number 0800201900. Address is 256 St. Anne's Road. Roll year 2023. Assessed value is $546,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1961, with 6 suites and 5 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 shows 2 2-bedrooms and 4 3-bedrooms for 6 units at $896.16. The gross effective income is $62,459, with the expenses at $34,609, brings the NOI to $27,850. At a cap rate of 5.1%, brings the value to $546,000. Again, page 4 are the rent comparables. Just trying to find similar year built in the area with similar suite mixes. And again, you can see that the subject falls at the low end of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 and 6 are the cap rate information. Page 8 and forward are the income and expense mailers. You can see in 2020, the NOI is about $27,000. 2019 is around $28,000, and 2018 is around $36,000, and the model's about $27,000. So it looks like we're right in line with that. Continuing on to page 13 is just an exterior photo of the building. Unfortunately, no interior photos, and that is my evidence.
Thank you. Jared, any questions?
Yeah, but just very quickly, our NOI is $13 apart, so
I see that.
the cap rate here. So the cap rate, Mr. Dation, that's all modeled, correct?
Correct.
And for a property of this vintage, does that 5.1, just from what we know of your own study or your own table here and what the brokers have suggested, does that not seem to be on the very, very low side?
I wouldn't say necessarily, no. For a smaller building, I think that's fair.
Okay. All right. I think those are my questions, and I'll just save the rest for my presentation, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
Okay, with the age of the building, there was no renos done in the past years?
No, nothing that I could find, no permits or any information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? She's muted.
No, thank you.
Thanks. Ian, any questions?
Yes, just following up on one thing you said with respect to the cap rate, you said as a result, or because this building was smaller, the cap rate was more likely to be lower, or paraphrasing here. Can you expand on that just a little bit, please?
From what I've seen, that the smaller buildings do get a lower cap rate compared to some of the bigger ones. I'm not sure if that applies all the time, but from my understanding, like, these smaller buildings are more desirable because they're more affordable, I guess, and there's a bigger pool of possible buyers. So I think that could drive down the cap rate a bit, from my experience.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
And I have no questions. So Jared, you can proceed with your presentation.
Very much. So we're at 256 St. Anne's. It's a 2-story wood frame structure. It's on the west side of St. Anne's between Fermor and Hull, and that's Old St. Patel. It was built in 1961. Gross floor area is 9,360. It has 2 2-bedroom suites and 4 3-bedroom suites, for a total of 6 suites. There are 5 outdoor parking stalls. You note that there's not a variant age, so I haven't seen the interior, but we're assuming that it's being rented. So we do recognize that this, well, frankly, the low number of suites from our perspective would be tantamount likely to more risk. When you have a property like this, you have some fixed expenses, and when you only have a small amount of suites, those expenses have to be shared disproportionately across a smaller amount of suites. That's one issue. And I don't know that I've seen anything regarding the wider pool of bidders that the assessment department sometimes talks about. So regardless, we've used 5.75, but I think that's creating a value that's on the low side. So I will use 5.5% in this case. I think that it's probably not renovated, but it is renting, and the suite mix is good, and it does have pretty good parking ratio. So ultimately, we've done a workup of the actual expenses and the actual income. I won't belabor it. Again, $13 a part. But ultimately, if we use a cap rate of 5.5%, as I mentioned, for these sort of middle of the road properties in the city of Winnipeg, the middle of the road cap rate makes sense as well. So ultimately, that gives us a value rounded to $506,000. And I think that makes sense. We come in at 484 with 5.75, but just to be consistent, I think 5.5 is fair. So again, we will respectfully submit the value not exceed 506,000, and it's all in cap rate. I think I will leave my presentation there, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clayton, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Valerie?
None, thank you.
Ian?
I do with respect to the configuration. This, I'm looking at the pictures here, and it didn't show up in any of the, well, I couldn't see it in the site plan, but it appears as though this is almost set up like fourplex with two entrances, or is it six suites, I guess. But I see two entrances on the front. Doesn't seem to be a shared hallway. Two entrances on the back, and I'm looking at page 3, no shared hallway. What is the configuration of the suite?
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to inspect it, but I think you're quite right. So if we have our two front doors,
Right.
and then see here that we've got one side door, and we have two back doors. So we'll presume that there's another side door on the side that we can't see. So typically these will be 3 above, 3 below. That would be my guess, but without viewing it, I'm not sure. But I think you're quite right. We probably wouldn't have a common hallway, but rather for the upstairs suites, you'd have those doors would open to a stairwell typically, and then of course the main floor suites would be on the main. So it may be 4 on the main and 2 on the top. I'm speculating. I haven't been, but
Okay, thank you. I was just curious. I
yeah,
hadn't seen a configuration like that in a long time.
yeah, it's the older style.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My question was, and I think Clayton had his comment about he doesn't think it's been renovated yet. I look at the pictures, and it certainly looks like they have new windows.
Those look like new windows, but they also look like very old doors. So it's kind of it's certainly
that was like that.
Yeah, but then again, the back doors look to be the newer style. So again, we're not making any adjustment for condition, but yeah, those do look like the newer style windows. But it is a bit odd. Those are those classic kind of 1960s storm doors.
Right.
Yeah. So
okay, that was my only question. So that concludes this property. The next one, we're on St. Anne's again. 406 St. Anne's Road. Is there any preliminary issues on this, gentlemen?
not for us, Mr.
Chair. And Clayton.
No, nothing there.
Okay, you can proceed with your presentation.
Okay, it's file number 222193, roll number 08003023023500, and the address is 406 St. Anne's Road. Roll year 2023, assessed value is at $1,154,000. It is 1 building, 2 stories high, built in 1958, with 14 suites and 9 outdoor parking stalls. Continue on to page 3 is the income value summary that shows 3 bachelors, 5 1-bedrooms, and 6 2-bedrooms for 14 units at an average monthly rent of $754.50. The gross effective income is at $122,700. Expenses are at $63,841, bringing the NOI to $58,859 at a cap rate of 5.1%. Brings the value to $1,154,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. Similar, you're built in the area. You can see it falls near the bottom of the range again for average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 and 6 are the cap rate tables. Continuing on to page 8 and forward are the income and expense mailers. The 2020 actual NOI is around 56,000. 2019 is around 61,000, and the model's around 58,000. So it looks like we're close in that regard. Continue on to page 13 is just some information about the building and the amenities. As you can see there, it says this 14-unit apartment has been tastefully decorated and upgraded suites, upgraded wood-style kitchen cabinetry, upgraded bathrooms with new vanities, basins, and tubs. And then continue on to page 14 forward. You can see some pictures of the exterior and the interior. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Jared, any questions?
Yeah, just very quickly, again, Mr. Deitchen, this cap rate, the expenses and the income, this is all model derived, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
Again, with the 1958, there's no, you didn't indicate there was any permits for any renos?
Yeah, no permits. I was just kind of looking at the pictures and the ad that states it, but.
Okay, because looking at the windows of the exterior, are those 1958 windows?
I do not think so, no.
Yeah, okay. I'm good for now, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I see from, yes, Mr. Deitchen, I see from your page 2 of your report that there was a sale and there's 2 consideration values. There's a sworn consideration and a sworn value. I'm assuming there's 2 properties that were sold here for a total value of $2.193 million, or is that?
Yeah, I believe that was a multi-role sale, so that's why I didn't touch on it, because we wouldn't put any weight onto that.
That was my suspicion. I thought I would confirm it.
Yeah.
Thank you for confirming.
And that was my only question. So Jared, you can proceed.
Thank you very much. Okay, so here we are at 406 St. Anne's. The building is indeed built in 1958. Now, just to be clear, we're not suggesting that there's been no work done to this property, but we are suggesting that the bones of the building, so to speak, are indeed from 1958. And it seems that the assessment department is agreeing that there's no need for a variant age. So we are treating it as a property from 1958, though we do recognize that it is in leasable condition. It's a 2 1/2 story walk-up. It's on the west side of St. Anne's. It's between Poplarwood and Berrydale. So this is, of course, St. Patel. Built in 58, it has 14 units, including 3 bachelor units, 5 1-bedrooms, and 6 2-bedroom units. And it has 9 parking stalls, so about 64%. So a bit not 1-to-1, but not a major concern. Ultimately, we have looked to the actuals. That's been stabilized and presented to you here on page 10. You can see that the actual rents that are being generated are $121,386. When we consider the laundry and parking income, it's $121,393. So we're just below the model. And in terms of the actual R&M or the expenses, the R&M is $1,414 per door. And we have that breakdown for you as well. So the actual expense ratio is calculated as 54.2%. Now for this property, it does fall in the cohortship between 1946 to 1959. So we do apply a slightly higher cap rate. It's interesting. There is some. It is one of those properties that's slightly on the borderline of the bifurcation, but we have to draw that line somewhere and have used 46 to 59. So in this instance, the property has been applied a 5.75 cap. We have some interior photos. Appears to be reasonably well maintained. We have the income statement supporting our workup. And I suppose ultimately with all those points taken into consideration, we do respectfully submit that the value not exceed $967,000. And again, that's based on the actuals with a 5.75 cap commensurate with the vintage of the property. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Clayton, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Valerie?
None, thank you.
And Ian?
No, I don't have anything.
And I don't have any questions. So that concludes 406 St. Anne's. Does anyone need a short break?
I'm good.
Valerie?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, and I'm good. So the next property on the docket is 410 St. Anne's Road, I assume next, adjacent to the previous property. Any issues?
For us, Mr. Chair, we're good.
Nope.
Okay, Clayton, you can proceed.
It is file number 223425, full number 0800302250. The address is 410 St. Anne's Road. Roll year 2023, assessed values at $1,882,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1968, with 18 suites and 18 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 shows 6 1-bedrooms, 12 2-bedrooms, giving us 18 units at an average monthly rent of $997.68. The gross effective income is at $208,603, with the expenses at $113,563, brings the NOI to $95,040. At a cap rate of 5.05%, brings the value to $1,882,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. Again, try to find similar suite mixes in the area built around the same time. You can see again, it falls near at the low end of the average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 and 6 is the cap rate information. Continue on to page 8 and forward, you can see the income and expense mailers. As you can see, the R&M is very high in all the years. I think in pretty much all the years, especially in 2020 at like nearly 4,800 a unit. If we used a above average rate of 1,500 R&M per unit, it brings NOI for 2020 to $93,000. Our model is 95,000, so it looks like we're quite close in that regard. Continue on to page 10 and forward. You can see some information about the property and pictures. You can see the interior is quite nice. Looks like newer cabinets in the kitchen and flooring. Same with the bathroom, looks like it was renovated as well. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared, any questions?
Yes, just while still fresh in my mind, Mr. Day, you mentioned that an average R&M is 1,500 per unit. Do you have any study to support that, or to support that 1,500 per unit would be commensurate with a property of this age?
It's just more of what we've seen, that rate would be at the higher end of the average, I should say.
Okay, but nothing in evidence to support that statement, is that fair?
Nope.
Excuse me. Okay, so again, your income value summary is indeed completely modeled, correct?
Yep.
And was there any attempt? I know you said that the expenses were high. Was there any attempt to stabilize them for the purpose of our exercise today?
No, I did not.
Okay. I think those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
Yeah, based along the effective date. So we can see that the suites have been remodeled. Are there any permits taken out on those?
No, unfortunately not. This one might require an inspection at some point to review that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ian?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I have just one. When I go through the pictures of the interior of this unit, it almost looks like it's staged. What's your thoughts on that, Clayton?
Oh, it probably is staged, I would think.
So in other words, we don't know if all the units are renovated or?
No, I don't know. I don't know that.
Okay, that was my only question. Jared, you can proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, sir. So once again, we're at 410 St. Anne's, and yes, these photos are indeed staged for marketing purposes. They're sort of, I don't know that the outside necessarily matches the inside in this instance, but we do know that this manager spends a fair bit of money to maintain these properties, and that's going to be reflected in the rent. So ultimately, we have this property in 1968. Again, it's a 1.5-story walk-up. It's the northwest corner of Berrydale and St. Anne's. So again, same hotel. 18 units, 6 1-bedroom suites, 12 3-bedroom suites. Gross floor area is 16,764 square feet, and there are indeed 18 outdoor parking stalls. The site size is 17,532 square feet, and it is zone RMFS. You'll note on my photo that it is it's somewhat of a, well, it's a fairly irregular parcel. No adjustment needed there, just a point of interest. So ultimately, we've taken the statements from the owner, and we've provided them in a stabilized manner for you on page 10. Now you'll see we did use a higher vacancy than what we would typically use. I mentioned earlier on the presentation of another property that we wouldn't use a higher than market vacancy unless there was some persistent vacancy. And you can see here over the years that it does range from a low of 6.1 to 10.4. And they are noting some bad debt and collection loss. However, we are recognizing that there is income by way of laundry and parking. So ultimately, I suppose our EGI at 220,426 is actually higher than the model. So our effective gross income is higher, but we have paid special attention to the property on a site-specific basis. The R&M is 2,391 per door, and that's actual. You can see the utilities run slightly high in this property for a market apartment, 17.3% of EGI. But these are actuals. It is indeed professionally managed. This is the economic reality of this property. So ultimately, our NOI, once stabilized, comes to 81,640. I've mentioned a number of times that many of the properties we're going to be looking at today are going to fall sort of in the middle of that bell curve of the majority of the apartment universe in Winnipeg are going to be properties of this vintage. So again, we're using that middle of the road cap rate of 5.5%. So when we take the actual NOI as stabilized with a cap rate of 5.5, we come to an indicated market value of $1,484,369, which we then round to $1,484,000. You have our R&M breakout. Again, that's on page 11, supporting the 2,391 per door. We have our income and expense mailers here, I believe. Yeah, and then we also have that marketing collaterals showing the very well staged and marketed interiors of this property. Again, we're not making any consideration for condition. We think it's in good condition, but at 5.5 cap rate makes more sense for a property of this vintage. So ultimately, again, we are requesting a value of $1,484,000. And with that, I'm open to your questions.
Thank you. Clayton, any questions?
Yeah. Do you agree that this property looks renovated as per the pictures, I guess?
Yeah, we're not suggesting that it's not renovated or that it's not maintained, but again, that's reflected in the cost of the R&M, and ultimately the reason you do that, Mr. Deitch, is so that your rents are at the higher level, so to speak. So you'll see that our EGI is in fact higher than yours, and this is something of a trend that we're seeing here today. I think sometimes when our R&M is higher, you'll see that our rents are higher than the model, and quite frankly, that makes sense. So we're not making any adjustment for condition. We're suggesting it is indeed a property from 1968. The foundation, the envelope, the bones of the building are from 1968. We're not making any adjustment, and you'll see in our cap rate study that we do indicate that those baseline cap rates are for good condition, good location. So I feel very comfortable with the 5.5 with this property and all the other properties that are similar today on our docket.
Okay. Would you agree that 2,400 a suite R&M is very high and not typical in these type of apartments?
Nope, I wouldn't agree that it's very high. I would agree that it's on the higher end, but I would suggest to you that when you look at the actuals and analyze them, that's actually what it takes in a building of this vintage to achieve those rents. And further to that, it is managed by it's one of the premier property managers in the city. So I'm going to suggest that they are expert in this, and if they could run it more efficiently, they certainly would. But this is simply the true economic reality of this property.
Okay. Would you agree then that the high R&M could be directly correlated with the renovations and the high vacancy that we see here?
No, I don't think that's correct. I think that the market will only bear a certain rental rate. We can see here that, well, our potential gross rents are $229,434. Based on presumably rents in the area, you're suggesting $215. So the rents are higher, and again, suppose you have to spend money to make money, so to speak. So if they are spending more on those on the R&M, then that makes sense that the rents are indeed higher. And again, I will point out that our EGI is just a touch over $10,000 higher than the model. So this all makes sense to me.
Okay, I guess looking on your page 11 where you did your R&M, wouldn't you agree that 2016 and 17 have some outliers, such as flooring replacement is at 13,000, cupboards are at 12,000, then it drops dramatically in 2018, 2019?
Sure, they're well. So sorry, you're talking about flooring?
Yeah, sure. Like just like the flooring, and then there's cupboards that seems to jump in 2017.
Right. So they're spending money, as I mentioned, they're spending money on the property, and that keeps it that subtends the rent that they're achieving. So yes, you're not going to spend. That's not going to be an annual charge. They're going to spend that money, and typically you'll see renovations on turnover. You're not going to sort of empty the suites out and then renovate them. Typically, these suites are renovated upon turnover. That's sort of the economic, most efficient way to do these things. So.
No further questions.
Thank you. Valerie.
I have none, thank you.
And Ian.
Just looking at the 2020 extraordinary repairs of just over $38,000.
Yeah.
You know what that entailed?
Well, in 2020, let's see here, extraordinary repairs. Just see. You can have it coded on. No, I don't have it here. But again, we're stabilizing the R&M. We're not using the actuals per year. It is stabilized. But no, I don't know what that exact charge relates to.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
And I have no questions. So that concludes 710 St. Anne's Road. And we're moving off St. Anne's to 227 Ferndale. Any preliminary issues?
We are good, Mr. Chair.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, Clayton, you can.
Sorry, I'm just bringing it up. Give me one second.
I have to bring it up too. Okay, you can proceed.
Okay, so it's file number 222900. Roll number 0609021500. The address is 227 Ferndale Avenue. It is roll year 2023. Assessed values at $881,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1946 with 11 suites and 4 outdoor parking stalls. On page 2, you can see that there was a sale for $1 million. I'll speak about a little bit later. Page 3 is the income value summary showing 10 one-bedrooms and 1 two-bedrooms for 11 suites at $736.01 average monthly rent per unit. The gross effective income is $95,210, and the expenses are at $50,280, bringing the NOI to $44,930 at a cap rate of 5.1%, brings the value to $881,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. You can see again it falls way below that range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 and 6 is the cap rate information. Page 8 and forward are some income and expense mailers. The actual NOI for 2020 is around $42,000 after removing mortgage payments, whereas our model is $44,000. So it looks like we're low in that regard. Skipping forward to page 14 is the MLS listing of the property. As you can see, it sold for $1 million in September of 2018. And then there's a little bit of information in there saying windows were replaced in 2012, chimney 2011. Continuing on to page 15 and forward are some pictures of the property from the listing. Then if you jump to page 20 is actually pictures of the building now. And you can see renovated 1-bedroom apartments for rent. Suites are renovated with new cabinets, hardwood flooring, quartz countertops, and stainless steel appliances, so it's higher end finishes. You can see page 21 and forward are the completely renovated suites, so the kitchens and the bathrooms and everything has been renovated. And that being said, there's no effective age, so it probably needs an inspection and effective age applied. And that is my evidence.
Thank you very much. Jared, any questions?
Yeah, just very quickly, Mr. Deitch, in that sale that you're referencing, so 2 points. Clearly, this purchase was with the intention to renovate the property. We can see that, correct?
Yeah, I guess so, potentially.
And at the time, do you know if this was part of a larger portfolio sale, or was this a one-time, one-off kind of purchase?
From my understanding, it was a one-time purchase.
And the balance of this is indeed modeled, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I think those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. And Laura.
I have none, thank you.
And Ian.
With respect to the sale and the income expense mailers, did the cap rate get calculated for the time of sale?
I don't. Like, do you mean like was there a cap rate for the sale? Listing?
If that formed part of the calculations with respect to the cap rate, or if that was something that was input into the model, or if it was just done as, if there was any calculations with respect to the net operating income and the sale price to determine what the cap rate was at the time of sale going through in 2018.
No, I did not do that.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Just one quick question. Was there permits taken out? It looks like there's been extensive upgrades.
Yeah, no permits for this one, so. But it looks like they probably would have needed some for the stuff that they did, but yeah.
Okay, that was my only question. Jared, you can start with your presentation.
Yes. Thank you very much. And Mr. Mann, you mentioned the cap rate was done, but typically we don't consider properties that were purchased with the intention to renovate to drive a cap rate, as they present a different economic opportunity. And this property was indeed purchased with the intention to renovate. I don't know about that sale. I know that the owner at the time was purchasing a number of apartments, so I did not consider it. I looked simply to the financials and then applied a market cap rate. So we are at 227 Ferndale. It's a 2.5-story wood frame walk-up. That's the west side of Ferndale between St. Mary's and Walmer, and we would call that Norwood East. It was built in 46, but there has been extensive renovations, as you can see by the photos. So typically, again, this group would fall between this 1946 to 1959 would generally be applied to 5.75. Though I had a second look at this property, and I think that based on the condition, based on the fact there was a fair bit of work done, I'm more comfortable with a 5.5 cap, which gives me a value of $823,000. We have a stabilized R&M of 1,152. You can see our EGI is just a touch higher than the assessor at 96,256. So ultimately, our NOI is 45,240. Once again, slightly higher than the assessor, but we think that a 5.5 cap for a property that's renovated but is indeed built in 1946 makes more sense. So we come to 823. This just becomes a cap rate issue. We think that 5.1 for a property that's almost 80 years old is on the very low side. So ultimately, with that correction, I think 823,000 makes sense, and I do respectfully submit the value not exceed $823,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Clayton, any questions?
Where did you get the 2019 income and information from? I don't see it in here.
Well, we would have had it on file. Hold on. Let's see here. So we have end of year December 2020. Yeah, we would have had it on file. It's not here in our evidence, but we did have it. It may have sold from one client to another. I'm not sure. No, sorry, he bought it in 18, so we would have had it on file. It would have been in the My Properties folder. We would have been able to see whatever he submitted, but it's not in evidence. I apologize for that.
Okay. Would you agree that these or the suites from the pictures are extensively renovated, and then the effective age should probably be adjusted?
Well, I suppose my comment on that would be when we have a wood frame property from 1946, there are going to be expenses that accrue to the owner that are certainly the suites are refreshed, they're renoed, and I have made consideration for that. We would typically, if this property were in what we'll call standard to good shape, we would say 5.75. So I've tried to be very fair and recognize that they have indeed done some work here. So 5.5 makes sense. 5.1 though, Mr. Dyson, would be on the very low end. It would be closer to a what we'll call more of a brand new build that's amenity rich. This is still, though it is renovated, it's in a great area. It is still it's a walk up from the middle 1940s. So I think we have to just sort of tether these cap rates to reality, and I think 5.5%, given what we know about this property, makes sense. 5.1 is certainly too low.
No further questions.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
And Ian?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. I'm curious because we received the evidence on Friday.
Oh, sorry. No, that I had
seemed to be.
No, I had submitted the original on time, but there was a typo. There's a pretty severe typo on the front page.
Okay.
So I submitted an updated version. My apologies, but I didn't want to cause confusion. Sorry. I thought I'd put a note on there, but maybe the note doesn't go to the panel members. So
no, that's okay, because in SharePoint it's correct. Like what we're looking at today.
Yeah.
But on Friday
it wasn't.
It wasn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That was my only comment. So that concludes 227 Ferndale. Anyone need a break?
I'm fine.
I'll just finish the document. Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Number 9 on the docket is 84 Regal. Any preliminary issues, either party?
Not for us, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Clayton?
No, thank you.
Okay, Clayton, you can proceed.
Okay. This is file number 221572. roll number is 080016520000. The address is 84 Regal Avenue. I have a recommendation for this property using the applicant NOI of 79,968, but at a cap rate of 5.2%, brings the value to 1,538,000 minus the land value beside it for the parking at 118,000, brings the total value to 1,420,420. Sorry.
So using the applicant's NOI and a cap rate of
Our cap rate of 5.2.
5.2.
Yep.
Okay, and Jared, were you aware of the recommendation?
I was not aware. Thank you, Mr. Deitchen, but I think we've still got some comments to make on cap rate for this one. So I'd like to proceed, Mr. Chair, but I'll limit my comments and questions to cap rate.
Okay, thank you. Jared? Peyton, you can proceed with the presentation.
Okay, it is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1961, with 18 suites and 18 outdoor parking stalls. It has 3 1-bedrooms, 15 2-bedrooms for 18 suites, at an average monthly rent of $821.27. The page 4 shows the rent comparables again. Page 5 and 6 is the cap rate information. Page 8 and forward are the income and expense mailers. You can see that the 2020 NOI is around $79,000 after removing mortgage payments. 2019 is around $89,000, and 2018 is around $77,000. The model is around $85,000, so it seems like we're right in line. Continue on to page 15 is a picture of the exterior. You can see looks like newer windows. Page 16 is just some information on the property. And then page 17 again is another exterior photo. Unfortunately, no interior photos. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Jared, any questions?
Yes, just very quickly, Mr. Deitchen, the cap rate is modeled, correct?
Correct.
And does the cap rate consider that this property requires ancillary parking to subtend the rents in the main holding?
I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Thank you. And Valerie, any questions?
Okay, along the line of permits, any permits taken out on this building?
No, unfortunately not.
Have you inspected this building recently?
I have not.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ian?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. So that concludes the property at 84 Regal. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So you're going so quick.
I know. Okay, I'll be very quick. So here we are at 84 Regal. So that's the south side of Regal, west of St. Anne's Road, 2.5-story walk-up. It's built in 61. And we note that there are 18 units with 3 1-bedroom suites and 15 2-bedroom suites. So we've pointed out where the main holding is and the ancillary parking. So for this property, if the assessor is agreeing to our NOI, that's fine. But I do want to talk about the cap rate. We have a property that is indeed 62 years old. It is wood frame and it does require the adjacent parking. So we have made an adjustment up from our 5.5 baseline that I've talked about today. And in this case, we've used 5.75 in this very specific circumstance. The actuals are all calculated in the same manner that we've talked about today. But since the NOI of 79,968 is accepted, we capitalize that value with a cap rate of 5.75. So a touch higher than what we've used previously. And it does sort of fall close to that borderline of 1959. So we have considered that as well. So ultimately, the market value comes to $1,397,46. less the parking lot value at the ancillary roll. The owner's already paying the taxes on that, so we don't want to double count that. And I think the assessor has agreed that we ought to remove that from the assessed value of the main holding. So with that in mind, our ultimate value comes to $1,272,746. That number once again becomes rounded to $1,273,000. And that is just based on a slight adjustment. We consider the age, and we do consider that it is somewhat atypical in that it requires ancillary parking, and that would be considered something of a negative or would be tantamount to slightly more risk. So again, we're comfortable at $1,273,000, and a thank you.
Thank you. Clayton, any questions?
I guess just one quick question about the parking. Would you agree that the neighboring property only has about 2, maybe 3 out of the 18 parking stalls and isn't necessarily required for the main holding, whereas some properties don't have any parking and then they rely on another lot for parking?
Most urban apartments do indeed have parking. I think it's about 4 or 5 stalls on that site. But ultimately, if we're going to use the actual rents that are being achieved, we have to recognize that regardless of how many stalls are on that site, they do support that income. So I agree with you. It's not all of the parking. It's not half of the parking, but it's some of the parking, and that is not that's not an ideal situation. It clearly would be beneficial to have all of your parking and your main holding on the same roll. But I appreciate your comment.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Valerie, any questions?
None, thank you.
Ian?
No, I don't have any questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. So that concludes 84 Regal. And the last property on the docket, I understand there's a preliminary issue. Clayton, is that correct?
Yes. We're looking for a non-co-op on this property.
Okay, if you want to read in the, this is 900 St. Mary's. If you want to read in the property description and then proceed with your issue on no non-co-op.
Okay, it is file number 222024, roll number 0800254400, and it's the address is 909 St. Mary's Road. We are seeking non-co-op. If you scroll to page 8, is the Canada Post Registered Mail notice that you can see was signed by the owner back in 2021 with the tracking number on there. And then page 9 is the cover letter that matches up with the tracking number. And yeah, that is all.
Okay, Jared, do you have any questions?
I have some questions, yes. So Mr. Deitchen, are you suggesting that there was a non-response to the department's request?
I mean, we don't have the income expense mailer.
Okay, so here's my question, and this is for my sake of my illumination, because I don't see it online, but what I do see in your submission is, if you just humor me for a moment, on page 13, you do have something relating to this property, do we not?
Yeah, it's all blank though.
No, it has some check marks. This is page 13.
Okay, yeah, I see the check marks, but that doesn't give us any information about the property.
No, okay, but it's not indeed a non-response, but a partial response by the looks of it.
I would still say that's a non-compliance because they didn't.
That's fine. I'm just trying to get to. I'm asking for a reason. Was there anything else attached to this form on page 13? Is there anything else submitted to you?
No, I pasted everything that I found on there.
And how was this submitted to you?
I'm not too sure. Like, it was in our system. I'm not sure if it was sent in or it probably would have been mailed in. I'm guessing. I'm not too sure.
Okay, so that's where I'm confused. So, okay, I think I'll leave it there. I wanted to get some some answers on where this came from, how it was submitted. I guess one last question, was there any conversation between the owner and anyone from your department regarding this form, if it was mailed in? Because it's not in the My Properties, and I can see that the mailer that was sent out is blank, but I'm trying to determine the source of this response on page 13.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. That's just what was in our system, so.
Yeah, okay.
They might have, yeah, I'm not sure.
So, but just to be very clear, there is indeed no financial statement or anything like that that was attached to this when it was submitted, or can you say that with certainty?
Yeah, like as you can see, even on page 2, like it says request for income, it doesn't say any response received. So yeah, like I said, we don't have anything.
Yeah,
for
that's my question.
The past couple of years, so.
If we didn't have this page 13, I would say, yeah, that makes sense. It looks, I mean, it was certainly signed for by the right person. I'm just trying to figure out the genesis of page 13, but okay, I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Valerie, do you have any questions?
None, thank you.
And Ian?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Clayton, I have one now. This page 13.
Yes.
Is that the only, isn't there a signature part of this document?
A signature. Oh, yeah, like sometimes below it there is, but yeah, I'm not too sure. Like I think this looks like it was filled out online. Like I'm not too sure.
That was my next question, whether it was filled out online.
Like maybe, yeah. So it looks like, because those check marks are pretty nice, I don't think someone did that.
Well, they're perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I'm not too sure how this came about, or I just thought it would be relevant to put in here to show that there was nothing on it.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess to consider your request, and we'll get back here at 10:52. We'll reconvene the hearing this morning. The board has considered the request of the assessor for the burden of proof to be shifted to the applicant, and the board has decided that we will comply or agree to his request for non-cooperation, and based on the evidence submitted. So based on that, Jared, you will go first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the roll number is 08002544000, and the property is located at 909 St. Mary's Road. So we have a property that's somewhat unique in that it's built over time. It's built in 2 sections. The original building was built in 1955, and the addition was built on in 2016. We have photos on my brief on page 2, so it is somewhat irregular. It's the assessment department is suggesting a variant age of 1994, which seems reasonable. It's a 2.5-story and 3-story wood frame structure. It is on the east side of St. Mary's between Havelock and Frederick. This is in Old St. Patel. It has 7 2-bedroom suites. The site is somewhat odd in that it's trapezoidal. We haven't made an adjustment. Now, ultimately, when we look at the income, neglected to attach my income. Well, sorry about that. But we have the numbers in here. So ultimately we're not disputing because it is a newer property. We're accepting the 3.2%. We're accepting the modeled rent of $1,346 per suite per month, and the expense ratio is at 41.65. So ultimately, this just comes down to cap rate. The city is suggesting 4.3%. We think that's extremely low. We are suggesting 5.5%, and that is based on the fact that it is this building built between 1960 and 1998 in that 1 to 5 story structure. So 5.5 makes sense to us. So that gives us an ultimate value. And I apologize for not having my work up in here. This
I was going to ask you.
It has a couple of anomalies in it, but effectively we're not disputing the NOI. And that is a clerical error on my part, not submitting the table, but it will not show you much other than the fact that we are just adjusting the cap rate in this instance to 5.5%. And that gives us a value of $1,161,000. We think that 4.3% is just exceptionally low. We don't see any support for that. So that is my presentation. Again, our request is $1,161,000, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Clayton, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And Valerie, any questions?
Just looking at the building, the exterior, it looks like it's been renovated. Do you have any indication if what the renovations would have been on this building?
Oh yeah, so what you're looking at there is the building that was built in 2016. So
Yes.
it's not renovated. It's actually just it's a new build. So that property that's recessed from the sidewalk, that's the original build from 1955. The new build is the one that's more prominent, closer to the sidewalk. That's from 2016. It looks like they reclad the original building, and they've ultimately suggested that a variant age of 1994 is appropriate. And we're okay with that. That makes sense. I mean, that's something of a weighted average where they're putting more focus on the newer build, and that's okay. But if I go to my cap rate study, again, that you've been provided, this group of all buildings, of buildings built between 1960 and 1998, 1 to 5 stories, would typically be applied a 5.5 cap. Now, we recognize that this property is a little atypical in that it's not truly a 1994 build. Part of it's from the 50s. It is built in a we'll call it piecemeal fashion. So it does have some abnormalities that we don't see in the market, but it's a rehabilitation project. So 5.5 makes sense to us. The very low end for new properties should be between 5 and 5.25. So we feel very comfortable at 5.5 in this instance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ian, any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
And I have no questions. So Clayton, you can proceed with your presentation.
I guess I'll skip to the income value summary. We have a gross effective income at 109,472 and expenses at 45,595 for an NOI of 63,877, and our cap rate's at 4.3% for the value of 1,486,000. I'll kind of skip ahead to page 15. Kind of speaks about the addition and the work that was done back in 2015, it looks like, 2016, for $375,000. And again, there's some pictures on 16 of the exterior. You could tell that it looks like the windows and siding was done. There is one not very good quality picture on page 17. You can see the interior. So they have stainless steel appliances and everything. Obviously, it looks new, the flooring. And then page 18 is just some ads that I could find that shows the rents around $1,400 back in 2017. Our cap rate might be on the lower end, but it's hard to adjust one way or the other because it looks like we're probably low on the income. So our NOI is probably low as well. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. And Jared, any questions?
Yeah, just very quickly, Mr. Deitchen, this is indeed model derived, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned that the cap rate is might be low. Now, does the cap rate have any ability, because it is algorithmic or it's sort of machine derived in nature, does it have any ability to consider factors like rehabilitations or piecemeal construction or anything like that?
I'm not too sure.
Okay, and then I guess the other question now, I'm sort of leery to look at permits and then try to equate that with market value, but just you've included a number of permits here today. So if I look at your permit here, it's saying $375,000, correct?
Yep.
And that's to build the add-on. correct?
Yep.
Okay, and it looks like they purchased the property at sale in 2018. It was 363.
Yeah, but it was a $1 sale, so it was associated. We don't put
Right,
anything
but
on
if we look at the sworn value, right?
Yeah, but the sworn value, you can't really use that either because.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, okay, but the sale in 2010, is that the same? That's the old building as well?
I'm assuming it was just for the old building, yeah.
Okay, so if you consider the sales and the permit value without depreciating the older building, doesn't your market value seem extremely high based on those parameters?
I mean, we can't. I mean, it would be hard to just use those numbers and determine it like that, especially without having income expense mailers to go up.
Okay, I think I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Valerie, any questions?
None, thank you.
And Ian?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. So that concludes this property.
Sorry. Oh, I was going to add one thing to it.
Oh, go ahead.
I forgot I had some notes on the side here. I guess there was an inspection done, and the cost of construction was actually $600,000. So the permit wasn't indicative of the total cost, but.
Just sorry, there's nothing in evidence here.
No, it's not. That was just a part of the notes that I just pulled out. So.
And we'll place the appropriate weight on all of the evidence. So we've heard all of the items scheduled today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
And have a good
day.